Amma ba'd, inshallah, in today's Usul Fiqh lecture, we will talk about, we will continue our topic, which was actually the sources of Hukm Shar'i, which are not agreed upon by all ulama. And today's topic will be laws revealed before Islam, or Shar'un min qablina. So, in general, the claim of the people who, or some of the scholars who claim that the laws that were revealed before Islam can also be taken as sources of evidences. And their claims are around this, that there are Quranic verses that address Muslims to abide by the Sharia of the previous prophets. And also another claim they have is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala orders the Muslims to abide by everything Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam conveyed, except for issues specific to him and issues that were abrogated. Therefore, they say the Muslims are addressed by the Sharia of previous nations because Quranic text contains and it does not give any kind of exception or abrogation about that text. Hence, we should be following this. So these are the claims they have, and inshallah, we will go these two claims as well as there are places where we are ordered to follow certain things which were ordered to the previous nations as well. But over there, it is clear from the text that command is towards the Muslims as well. But let's go one by one, inshallah. That will clarify the subject. And there's a reason. There's one of the important things here around this subject is because this is one of the sources sometimes has been used in a very incorrect manner, which is about Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam. It is used as if Yusuf alayhi salam was implementing the laws of the kufr. One, that's obviously a very big statement to be assigned to a prophet. It is definitely wrong, without any doubt, that Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam was ruling by other than what Allah has revealed. That's one aspect of it. Second, they say is he was actually under the king, hence he was ruling by the laws of the king, who was implementing the kufr. But both the statements are wrong. One they say is, well, because Quran is mentioning that he was given the authority over the land, Khazainul Ard, hence that shows that it is okay for Muslims to participate in the kufr system or implement the laws which are other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's laws. And both the statements are incorrect from two perspectives. There's actually, we find that some of the scholars actually say that Yusuf alayhi salam had the full authority, he was a king. And second one says that he was not ruling. As a matter of fact, he had administrative authority over over some of the economic things, but he was not ruling. So either ways, he was not breaking any laws. And for anyone to say that he was implementing kufr, that's a huge statement to assign to a prophet of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So that's wrong. But so they use this terminology of laws revealed before Islam. First of all, that's wrong to say Yusuf alayhi salam did that. On the second part, this itself cannot be used as a source that the laws revealed before Islam are not for us anyways. And inshallah, we'll talk about this today. Okay. So the evidences that they use in general to say that we are ordered to follow the previous revelations are like this. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, "Inna awhayna ilayka kama awhayna ila Nuh wa nabiyyina min ba'dihi wa awhayna ila Ibrahim wa Isma'ila wa Ishaq wa Yaquba wal asbati wa Isa wa Ayyuba wa Yunusa wa Haruna wa Sulaiman wa atayna Dawuda zabura." In this ayah, Allah Azza wa Jalla in the beginning of the ayah is actually saying that verily we have inspired you, Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, as we inspired Nuh alayhi salam and prophets after him. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned the names of the other prophets. Now here, there's a problem here to say that this ayah can be used as an evidence, because it is wrong to say that here Allah is talking about that we are giving you the same, or we are commanded you to follow the Sharia or the laws of the previous prophet. As a matter of fact, this ayah is not even talking about this. Ayah is referring to that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was given the revelation, or he was inspired by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala the way he inspired the other prophets. It has nothing to do with the wahi or the shara of the previous prophet. So that's an incorrect connection that was made. Other other ayah that's used is ثم أوحينا إليك أن اتبع ملة إبراهيم إبراهيم حنيفا وما كان من المشركين. That it says that then we reveal to you, follow the way of Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam, with exclusive devotion to Allah Azza wa Jal. He was not one of those who associate others with Allah in his divinity, and he was not from the mushrikeen. Now here the word Allah, the millah, which is used as millat Ibrahim Hanifa, millah here does not mean again as the Sharia of Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam. Rather, this ayah is talking about the fundamentals of the Tawheed. And the Millah is referring to the Tawheed, to the way Ibrahim alayhi salam was following the Tawheed, and he was وَمَا كَانَ مِنَ الْمُشْرِكِينَ, he was not from the Mushrikeen. That's what it was talking about. And all the prophets actually came with the same message of the Tawheed. Tawheed is the core of the deen that all prophets came with. So there was no distinction about when it comes to La ilaha illallah, that there's nobody worthy of worship except Allah Azza wa Jal. That message was all was same for all the prophets, and that's the part of the Tawheed that all the prophets conveyed. So it's not talking about the Shara. So we cannot connect this ayah as well with the Shara of those prophets. Now, and then another ayah used for this purpose is Inna anzalna tawrata fiha hudan wa nur yahkum bima an-nabiyyun. Surely we reveal to the Torah and there is guidance and light thereby the prophets, yahkum biha an-nabiyyun. And the prophets actually, they were the one they were commanded to rule. The prophets here is not Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, because this ayah is referring to Bani Israel and the prophets that were sent to Bani Israel. And the prophets of Bani Israel were commanded, not Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, because Muslims have no prophets except Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, which is Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. We cannot, we are not the one who are obliged to follow the Shara of these prophets. And so this ayah is not referring to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, rather is referring to the prophets of the Bani Israel. So that ayah cannot be used as evidence either. Now there is a hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam that is sometimes also misunderstood here. The hadith is al-anbiya'u ikhwatun li'allat ummahatukum shatta wa dinuhum wahid. The hadith says that Rasulullah said the prophets are paternal brothers. Their mothers are different, so they are from they are brothers from the different mothers, as there's expression used in English as well. So it's showing the brotherhood of the prophets. But their religions are, but the religion is one. Again, the deen is one, referred to Tawheed or the Aqidah, which all the messengers have, as we have talked about previously also. As Allah Azza wa Jalla said, لِكُلٍّ جَعَلْنَا مِنْكُمْ شِرْعَةً وَمِنْهَاجًا. To each among you, we have prescribed a Sharia and a method, meaning each prophet was given a different Sharia of his own. So we cannot say that here when it says al-anbiya wa ikhwatun li'allat, it means that they have the same Sharia or they have to follow the Sharia of each other. No, rather it is saying, it's talking about the message of Tawheed again. This is where they all agree upon, all the prophets. Okay, so these the evidences that are used for justifying the Sharia of previous prophets and nations as a legal source are not strong. So these are not strong evidences, hence it cannot be taken. Okay, now besides that, there are actually evidences which are very clear regarding that we are Muslim. As a Muslims, we are not ordered, as a matter, we are ordered not to follow the other laws of the other prophets. Rather, we are given a specific way of life, a specific Sharia, which was given to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and we are obliged to follow that. And if we don't follow that, actually, then we cannot be successful in the Day of Judgment. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, وَمَنْ يَبْتَغِي غَيْرَ الْإِسْلَامِ الدِّينَ فَلَنْ يُقْبَلُ مِنْهُ وَهُوَ فِي الْآخِرَةِ مِنَ الْخَاسِرِينَ. Allah Azza wa Jalla says in Surah Al-Imran here that whosoever seek any deen other than Islam, it will not be accepted from him, and he will be from the khasirin, from the losers. And similarly, in the same surah, Allah Azza wa Jalla says, "Inna ad-deena inda Allahi al-Islam," that the only deen in front of Allah Azza wa Jalla, that truly the religion in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is Islam. So any other religion or any other deen people are following, that will not be accepted by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala after Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was sent. Okay, so we are commanded very clearly to follow Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam only here. Similarly, the ayah here that says وَأَنزَلْنَا إِلَيْكَ الْكِتَابَ بِالْحَقِّ مُصَدِّقًا لِمَا بَيْنَ يَدَيْهِ مِنَ الْكِتَابِ مُهَيْمَنًا عَلَيْهِ. This ayah says we have revealed to you, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, a book with haqq, مُصَدِّقًا لِمَا بَيْنَ يَدَيْهِ, and it verifies, it confirms whatever of the book was revealed بين يديه before that من الكتاب مهيمن عليه, and this book or this what you are given is a protecting and guarding over it. It's a dominant one over that. See, so sometimes people think of it here, the muhaymana means that it's also just verifying the previous books. No, muhaymana here does not mean verifying, because the word for verification or confirming the other books is musaddiqan lima. As a matter of fact, muhaymana here is referring to that it is actually talking about the abrogation. Dominant here or protecting here means it is abrogating the previous Shar'i here, or previous books that were revealed. So now when Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was given the Quran, the previous books have been abrogated for us, or previous Sharia that was there was abrogated. And there's the ijma of the Sahaba about that indicates that the Islamic law abrogated all previous ones. So we cannot go back to that. Okay, so that's about what the Quran and the Hadith says. And the other Hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam also point out towards that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was given a specific, different, unique kind of Sharia compared to the other prophets. As the Hadith of Rasulullah, a famous Hadith that talks about "Utitu khamsa lam yu'tahunna ahadun qabli." The Hadith said, "I was given 5 things that was not given before me." كان كل نبي يبعث إلى قومه خاصة. That every prophet was appointed towards his nation specifically. وَبُعِثْتُ إِلَى كُلِّ أَحْمَرَ وَأَسْوَدَ. And I have been appointed to all the blacks and the whites, or the red, you want to call it ahmar, red and the white, and the blacks, meaning talking about all the people, as other hadith actually clarifies about for all the people. So that automatically shows that every prophet was for a specific nation, hence he had a specific sharia for the specific nation, while Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was sent for the whole mankind. Hence, his sharia was different than the others. And of course, there were 4 other things I mentioned here in the hadith. But since this is a specific important part for this talk today, so I'm just mentioning that part of one of the things besides within those 5 things that was given specifically to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Now, similarly, another hadith says, "Fudiltu ala al-anbiya bisittin." That's I was Rasulullah saying I've been given a priority or for Deltu superiority over the prophets, other prophets with 6. What are those 6 things? Again, there are 6 things I mentioned. The thing which is important for today's talk here is the hadith of "Ursiltu ila al-khalqi kaffa wa khutima bi an-nabiyyun." That I was sent for the creation, for the mankind, kaffa, for the whole mankind. And and the line of the prophethood is closed after me. This hadith is reported by Imam Muslim in Sahih. So that's again the same thing. Rasulullah was sent for all the people, while on the other hand, other prophets were sent for specific nations only. As the ayat of Quran talks like this, وَإِلَى ثَمُودَ أَخَاهُمْ صَالِحًا, as the ayat says that Thamud, Salih alayhi salatu wasalam was sent to his people, because وَإِلَى ثَمُودَ أَخَاهُمْ. So towards the Thamud, the nation of Thamud, their brother Salih was sent. Similarly, وَإِلَى عَادٍ أَخَاهُمْ هُودَ, and to the nation of Ad, Allah Azza wa Jal sent Hud alayhi salatu wasalam. And إِلَى مَدْيَنْ أَخَاهُمْ شُعَيْبًا, and to Madian, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent Shu'aib. So these specific prophets were sent for specific nations with a specific sharia, as the previous ayah we talked about, where Allah Azza wa Jal mentioned about that every prophet was sent with a different sharia. Now, of course, we're talking about the Rusul here. In the case of, there's a difference between a Rasul and a Nabi. Rasul is the one who comes with the sharia, while the Nabi is the one who would follow the previous Rasul's Sharia. He will not come with with a new Sharia. Rather, he's the one who will be just following that. In the case of the Rasul, he comes with a Sharia of his own. Okay. Now, so what are the points we can take out of this specific first claim that Quranic verses addresses Muslims by the Sharia of the previous prophets? Is that number one, the dalils that are used for refer only to Tawheed and Aqaid, not the Sharia. That's number 1 point. Second, there are legal texts that prohibits following the Sharia except the Islamic Sharia. So for us, for the Muslims, Quranic, the ayat from the Quran and the ahadith from the Rasulullah are clearly, the text says that we have to follow the Sharia of Rasulullah and not the others. Third point, the Prophet, each Prophet was sent specifically to his people while Rasulullah was sent for the mankind. So that all these 3 points put together gives us clear understanding that we don't need to follow. As a matter of fact, we are not allowed to follow the previous prophets' Sharia. Rather, we have to follow what Rasulullah brought. So hence, the law of previous nations is not considered as a source of rules. Now, but there are a couple of questions still need to be answered. One is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala orders the Muslims to abide by everything the Rasulullah conveyed, except for issues specific to him and issues that were abrogated. So now, up to here is fine, but what they do, what they say is, so hence it means that because Rasulullah also brought a message in the Quran, in the form of the Quran and the Hadith that talks about the other previous nations also. So can we take those laws or the things which are mentioned in those stories that Rasulullah has mentioned, and their laws are mentioned, so do we have to follow that or not? So when we look at that, so there's a few points to keep in mind. Number one, Rasulullah narrated affairs of previous nations to learn and take lessons from the morale of their stories, not to abide by their laws. So we are commanded to take the ibrah, to get the lessons out of stories, not to follow, and we'll see why we're not supposed to follow the laws either. Also, Rasulullah narrated to Muslims the stories of previous prophets as well as information about other nations. We know that from the hadith and the Quranic ayat. And he explained the situation and rules they were following just as a reminder, not in order to follow their rules. The news about the nation's affairs and rules they were following were all mentioned as a mere narration to take lessons from and not as laws to follow. So to just sum it up, main idea about the previous nations' stories to be conveyed to us was so we learn, we get the lesson out of it, not the laws out of it. Unless there is some specific qarina that is mentioning about something, and that will come at the end, inshallah. Okay. Now, why did I say that? Because there are many incidents, and I think I picked like 4 or 5 of those incidents that show that they were for the previous prophets, but they do not apply to us anymore, even though they are mentioned in the Quran and the Sunnah, but they do not apply to us. As a matter of fact, it would be, in some cases, it would be haram for us to follow that. Like, for example, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَتَفَقَّدَ الطَّيْرَ فَقَالَ مَالِي لَا أَدْرِي الْهُدْهُدْ أَمْ كَانَ مِنَ الْغَائِبِينَ. This is about Sulaiman alayhi salatu wasalam. He inspected the birds and he said, what's the matter? I don't see hudhud. And he's among the absentees. So then he said, لَعَذِّبَنَّهُ عَذَابًا شَدِيدًا أَوْ لَأَذْبَحَنَّهُ أَوْ لَيَأْتِيَنِّي بِسُلْطَانٍ مُبِينٍ. And the Sulaiman alayhi salatu wasalam said, I will punish him with a severe torment, or I will do the dhabha, I will slaughter him, unless he brings some sort of clear reasoning for his absentee. Now, here, Sulaiman alayhi salatu wasalam is talking about the punishment to a bird. And there is no agreement among the Muslims that punishing animals is forbidden in Islam. I mean, we cannot, it's not allowed for us just to punish the animals. And as the hadith of Rasulullah talks about that, there is no recompensation even if the animal hurts you. Like the hadith says, عن أبي هريرة رضي الله عنه أن رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم قال العجماء جرحها جبار. That says that there is no diya for persons killed by an animal. Meaning, if the animal has hurt some animal, doesn't mean that he has to be punished here. Okay, we are not talking about the issue of animals that harm the human beings. So those animals you can get rid of. That's a separate, completely separate subject, and this is not the point of discussion here. The point of discussion here is like Sulaiman alayhi salatu wasalam, he was actually going to punish the hudhud for his being absent. while he was inspecting the birds. Okay. Similarly, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about Surah Al-An'am, على الذين هادوا حرمنا كل ذي ظفر. So here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is talking about the Yahud, that we forbid them every animal with undivided hoof. ومن البقر والغنم حرمنا عليهم شحومهما. That here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is talking about from the cows and from the cattle or the sheep. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made it haram on them, شحومهما, the fat. إلا ما حملت ظهورهما, except the one that is stuck on the back of it. So it is mixed up with the bone. أو الحوايا أو ما اختلط بعدم. Sorry, the ما اختلط من بعدم means the mixed with the bone. ذلك جزيناهم ببغيهم وإنا لصادقون. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala recompense them for their rebellion. So and really we are truthful. So here Allah Azza wa Jalla is talking about Yahud. This is a story about the Yahud. Now here there's a law mentioned about the Yahud here, and it was haram for them the fat of the animal. Now we know that within the Muslims it is allowed for us. For the fat can be eaten, so hence it is allowed. So we cannot say this law we're going to take it from them, and inshallah I'll talk about that part also. That doesn't mean the Islamic law came and it abrogated that law that was given to the Yahud. That's not the case either. It is not the abrogation has happened. Rather, it is the abrogation of the whole Sharia of the previous nation. Okay. Similarly, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions about Zakaria, Prophet Zakaria. إذ قالت امرأة عمران ربي إني نذرت لك ما في بطني محررا فتقبل مني إنك أنت السميع العليم. Not Prophet Zakaria, rather about the laws, the Sharia that was given during the time of Prophet Zakaria. So when the wife of Imran, she made the dua that I am making a vow that whatever is that what's in my womb, I will make another for you, meaning dedicate this for your services. Innaka anta sami'ul alim, and you are the one who is all hearing and all knowing. Now, about dedicating your child for a service like this or to do another like this, it was one of the things that was part of the Prophet Zakaria, but it is not allowed in Islam. So again, it goes back to the very same concept here, that there's a law mentioned in this story that was happening or practiced during the time of Prophet Zakaria, but we cannot follow that in Islam, even though it is mentioned in the Quran. Similarly, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about كل طعام كان حلا لبني إسرائيل إلا ما حرم إسرائيل على نفسه. That says all food was lawful to the children of Bani Israel except what Israel made unlawful for himself. See, here it's talking about making something unlawful to yourself. من قبل أن تنزل التوراة, before and it says that bring here the Torah and recite. Sorry, unlawful before the Torah was revealed, and then says قل فأتوا بتوراة فاتلوها إن كنتم صادقين. Bring here the Torah and recite it if you are truthful. Now here we're talking about Bani Israel. They made things haram on themselves. So now here, as we are saying, except what Israel made unlawful. So making food lawful or unlawful, or making unlawful for yourself was allowed for them at that time. While on contrary to that, we know in Islam, it is not allowed, it's haram for us to make something haram on ourselves, which is made halal by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. See, not eating is one thing, and saying that I'm making haram for myself, I will never eat something, or it is haram on me to eat something. So you cannot make something haram on yourself. In Islam, it is haram for anyone to make anything haram if Allah did not make it haram. As Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam in a famous story, when he made himself that he will never eat honey, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, Ya ayyuhan nabi, lima tuharrimu ma ahallallahu lak. O Prophet, why do you forbid what Allah has made lawful for you? So the point here is this, that Bani Israel, the story of Bani Israel is mentioned, about that is mentioned that all food was lawful to the Bani Israel except what Israel made unlawful for himself. So, but on contrary to that, when Rasulullah tried to do that, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forbid on him. So even though Quran talks about Bani Israel doing so, it does not apply on us. That's the key thing here. Okay. Similarly, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about Ashab al-Kahf, and when the story ends, the story talks about when they found a place where they were at. So they were fighting about what to do with the area where they were sleeping. Finally, قال الذين غلبوا على أمرهم لنتخذن عليهم مسجدا. So the one who had the upper hand among the one who were arguing, they said, we shall build a place of worship over them. So where they were they were buried, they were going to build the masjid there. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala actually, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, actually, the hadith very clearly talks about the subject of building the masajid, or the people, or the religious people, or worshippers of Allah Azza wa Jal, or the righteous people, to build masajid over the qubur is something which is very detestable. It's haram in Islam. As the hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, inna ulaika idha kana fihim rajulu salih famata banu ala qabrihi masjidan wa sawwarahu bihi fihi tilka suwar ulaika shirarul khalqi inda Allahi yawm al-qiyamah. When a pious person amongst them, among these religious group dies, they build a place of worship on his grave and decorate it with such pictures. They will be the worst of creatures on the day of judgment in the sight of Allah Azza wa Jal. This hadith is reported by Muslim, and similar hadith is reported by Imam Bukhari as well. So we can see that one place Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran, when the story of Ashab al-Kahf is mentioned, talking about building the masjid over there, while in Islam it is not allowed. So the idea from these 5 examples that I have mentioned is to understand, number one thing, we should not be thinking of it, we are talking about that it should not be said that only those rules mentioned above are abrogated, their corresponding Islamic rulings. That's not the case here, actually. Because the reason for this is because Islamic rules did not come to abrogate the previous rules on a case-by-case basis, but rather came as a complete Sharia for humanity that has no relationship with the previous one. That's a claim of case-by-case abrogation is invalid, because for that you have to have a proof to show that it is showing that this is case-by-case. It's not. On the contrary, we have very clear evidences that shows that the previous Sharias have been abrogated. So hence we will look at these examples as, because all the whole Sharia have been abrogated, hence we cannot take the rules from there. Okay. Now the question comes in is, the rules that show a Quranic verse that is addressing previous nations applies to Muslims as well. How do we deal with that kind of stuff? So if that's the case, so if there are any, there's some text out there, there's text in the Quran that talks about a subject like that, which applies to the Muslims as well. So in that case, Muslims are obliged to follow those rules, because it is part of now, but in that case, now it becomes the part of Islamic Sharia. We're not following it because it was for the previous nations. Rather, there is some indicator out there that shows that this applies to the Muslims as well. Okay, so as a whole, the Sharia of the previous nation is abrogated. But if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is mentioning something about previous nations, but at the same time asking Muslims to follow that, then we have to follow that as well. Because now it's the Sharia of Islam is telling us to follow. Like, for example, Allah Azza wa Jalla says, so first case is like this. In the case if the address to the Muslims is started, it is addressing the Muslims and mentioning about the previous nations. That in that case, because the address is very clear, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu, it says, oh, you who believe, referring to the Muslims. We know this term is used for the Muslims. Then the laws which are mentioned after that, even though they were for the previous nations, they apply to Muslims as well. As one of the ayat in Surah Tawbah says, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu, inna kathiran min al-ahbari wa ruhban la ya'kuluna amwal an-nas bil batili wa yasudduna an sabilillah. Walladhina يكنزون الذهب والفضة ولا ينفقونها في سبيل الله فبشرهم بعذاب أليم. Here the ayah started with the indicator for us that shows that this rule that is mentioned here applies to Muslims as well, because it starts with, oh, you who believe. There are many of the rabbis and the monks. So even though it's talking about among the rabbis and the monks who devour the wealth of the mankind in falsehood and hinder from the way of Allah Azza wa Jalla, and those who hoard up gold and silver and spend it not in the path of Allah, then there's a news from Allah Azza wa Jalla about the painful torment. Now here in this ayah, because this started with Ya ayyuha alladhina amanu, because of that, then hoarding of the wealth is also haram for the Muslims. And of course, talking about like those ahbar and ruhban, if we have people who are scholars and the Muslims in general, they are doing yakuluna amwal an-nas bil batil. They are eating, devouring the wealth of the people by invalid means and putting barriers in the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They are haram anyway. But here specifically talk about yaknizuna al-dhahaba wal-fidda, that hoarding the gold and silver, it is haram as it was haram for them. Okay. Now the second case is the places where the ayah is using the terms, even though the address is to Ahlul Kitab, for example, to previous nations, but there are indicators in there that actually tells us. Actually, I went to the wrong one. There are indicators in there that tells us that that applies to all, or it's a general rule, a general connotation over there. Like in the ayah where Allah Azza wa Jalla says, it started with وَكَتَبْنَا عَلَيْهِمْ فِيهَا أَنَّ النَّفْسَ بِالنَّفْسِ وَالْعَيْنَ بِالْعَيْنِ وَالْأَنْفَ بِالْأَنْفِ وَالْأُذُنَ بِالْأُذُنِ وَالسِّنَّ بِالسِّنِّ وَالْجُرُوحَ بِالْقِصَاصِ فَمَنْ تَصَدَّقَ بِهِ فَهُوَ كَفَّارَةٌ لَهُ. Now here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala started off talking about the Ahlul Kitab, that it was ordained on them about life for life and eye to eye, nose to nose, and on and on and on. But at the end of the ayah, it says, وَمَنْ لَمْ يَحْكُمْ بِمَا أَنزَلَ اللَّهُ فَأُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الظَّالِمُونَ, because the particle which is used here is وَمَنْ. Here when it's used, وَمَنْ لَمْ, what is used is man. Man is actually in Arabic language establishes a general connotation here. It's a general hukm now. It's not specific to only Ahlul Kitab. So it says, وَمَنْ لَمْ يَحْكُمْ بِمَا أَنزَلَ اللَّهُ فَأُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الظَّالِمُونَ, and whosoever rule by anything what Allah has revealed, they are from the dhalimun, they are from the tyrants. And so this applies to Muslims as well. Not the rule that was mentioned before, but rather what is mentioned here is to rule by what Allah has revealed. Okay, obviously the rules that were mentioned prior to that within the same ayah, they do not apply to us because that was for the previous nation. But the second part of the ayah, which is referring to وَمَنْ لَمْ يَحْكُمْ بِمَا أَنزَلَ اللَّهُ فَأُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الظَّالِمُونَ, whosoever rule by whatever other than what Allah has revealed, they are from the tyrants, because now he is talking about the generally. If you're ruling by anything but what Allah has revealed, they are from the tyrants. Okay, and the third one, the third case in that case where address starts off for the Ahlul Kitab or the previous nations or the stories of the previous nations, but actually at the end of the ayat, it alludes towards that this is actually there is something that you are supposed to follow in there. For example, the story of Qarun, which is mentioned in Surah Al-Qasas. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala starts, Inna Qaruna kana min qawmi Musa fabagha alayhi wa ataynahu min al-kunuz. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is talking about Qarun, that he was from the people of Musa alayhi salam, and he's the one who he was given treasures. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala continue to talk about him and the transgressions and the bad things that Qarun was doing. But after, like from ayah number 76 to 82 talks about Qarun, and then the ayah goes towards Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam as well. It says, تِلْكَ الدَّارُ الْآخِرَةُ نَجْعَلُهَا لِلَّذِينَ لَا يُرِيدُونَ عُلُوًّا فِي الْأَرْضِ وَلَا فَسَادًا وَالْعَاقِبَةُ لِلْمُتَّقِينَ. That the home of the hereafter paradise we shall assign to those who rebel not against the truth with pride and oppression. So here now is addressing towards the Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The ayat goes towards the Muslims, so talking about the whatever is mentioned for the Qarun, the rebelliousness that Qarun did or arrogance that Qarun had, that applies to the Muslims as well. It is haram for us to have the arrogance like him. So hence, because the address went towards Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, then it applies to the Muslims as well. So that shows that in these three situations, the rules mentioned in these ayat are a part of the Islamic Sharia, because there are texts indicating the Muslims are addressing by it. So to sum it up, we can look at the laws revealed prior to Islam are not for the Muslims to follow, because they have been abrogated. But if there is a command from Allah Azza wa Jal that indicates us to follow something that was given to previous nation also, then we are obliged to follow, because Allah is asking us in the Sharia of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam to follow this. We're not still following because it was a law for the previous nation. Rather, Allah has asked us to do something. So that's the case about law revealed before Islam. They are invalid to be used as the source of evidence. This is why the scholars do not agree upon this subject, this source as the source of evidence. Okay, inshallah, I'll stop here. And if there is any questions or comments about today's subject, inshallah, I will try to cover it or answer.